Hello, my name is Jack Dowling. I am for want of a better term, management consultant in London, working with various businesses on some transformation projects.
Very exciting. Very exciting. So, from
Well,
my understanding, you were with another management company before your, I guess, friends, Lizzie and Ollie, referred you to us. What is it that you didn't like about your previous management company that made you open to reach out to us?
yeah. First of all, that's absolutely correct. I was with Houst, Houst.
Yeah.
I was with them for well over a year. They did some things reasonably well. They kind of dealt with a lot of the bookings and stuff like that, but frankly, there just wasn't enough coming through. There just wasn't much impetus in terms of pushing the property. Effectively, they were just setting up a simple Airbnb ad, which I could have done myself, and found somebody to do the kind of local management. So yeah, in a nutshell, it was down to just a lack of revenue coming through the property. I was hesitant to, and still am hesitant to, move to long-term rentals, just because of my personal situation. I appreciate the flexibility. And then, happened to be talking to some friends, some very good friends of mine, who emigrated over to the States and needed somebody to rent the property in their absence, which is kind of even more hands-on and you need to be even more trustworthy than me. I mean, I still live in London. I can get to the property if I need to, if there are any problems, but they're in Atlanta. They're a long way away. And they spoke very highly of Chris and Hostroo, and I was willing to move forward on the basis of a trial, if you remember, Chris.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
that trial went well. Specifically addressed the feedback point that I had with Houst, and managed to get some pretty solid interest in tenancy fairly quickly. And then we just went from strength to strength. And it's been some really pretty good residency. Still a bit to do. There's always more. I always want a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Chris has helpfully just probably coming to a future question here, but just confirmed a long-term rental for 4 months, which is really going to help us. And back to that crucial point, it's about how much money is coming through the door, and he's delivered not only some good tenancies, but also some really good prices.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that you're not actually the first client we have that's moved over to one of these bigger corporate management companies, and they're really good. They've got a lot of departments, very friendly, very professional. But then when it comes down to the revenue and your net payout per month, sometimes smaller landlords, they're less prioritized. You end up just being a number.
Just to
Onboarding,
add to that, Chris,
yeah,
if it's helpful, you really kind of struck a chord with me in just one of those sentences that you were saying. If you go on the House website and actually even their portal, it's fantastic. They're very good in terms of the tech, and it all looks very flash. But you end up working with a often quite junior member of that team, and I was just hand holding them through a lot of the process. I spoke about the Airbnb advert. I basically put it together myself. And there just wasn't, yeah, as we were saying, there wasn't that impetus. There isn't the hands-on ability to drive it. For my property in particular, it isn't prime London. It's in East London. It's in Mile End. It's close to Canary Wharf, close to Queen Mary, close to Shoreditch, but it's not quite Zone 1. It does need a bit of an extra push. And I think that's really where I've benefited.
how have you found the property condition?
Yeah, very good. I mean, I would caveat that with it's a new build. It doesn't need a huge amount of work.
Yeah,
But there is one example, that you're well aware of, Chris, where you helped me get a extremely competitive quote for some boiler replacement work
yeah,
that in a new build should have been relatively easy, but actually meant some extensive new piping. And I think I shared this at the time, but I went out and got some additional quotes, and yours was significantly less than the people that I spoke to, which I think just speaks to a couple of things. One, in direct answer to your question that you're interested in looking after the property. The guys did a really good job. But two, also that you're not looking to make a huge amount of money on a introductory fee
Yeah.
on top of what these people are charging. And again, I think that speaks to a pretty positive working professional commercial relationship that we have.
Yeah.
And I've been back to the property several times. Obviously there's always a little bit of wear and tear, but it is in good condition, and the cleaners do seem to be doing a good job. They're keeping the plants alive, which
Yeah.
is not to be not to be underestimated. Sometimes I struggle. So yeah, all things being said, I think it's working well. And yeah, Hostroo have definitely been doing a good job of looking after the condition.
Perfect. And I guess the last thing is that if someone was on the fence about moving forward with Hostroo,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just recapping the points I've already made, which would, to summarize, be, don't get carried away with, somebody's website or the technology that they can provide. The rentals that we are looking to get, medium-term rentals for me in particular, require and benefit hugely from a hands-on approach and somebody going out and pushing the property and having relationships with the kind of companies that are building and moving people in for 4 months, 9 months, whatever it might be. So those relationships, they don't necessarily just come straight through Airbnb. And if you want to address those and you want to compete for that clientele, then you need to go with a company you know, like Hostroo. And I think they're a really good example for the other reasons that I've mentioned in terms of recommended to me. I've had a wholly positive experience, coupled with good support for customer complaints and the plumbing issue that I've already mentioned. So all in all, I would recommend too, and have done. And I'm sure there'll be people in the future that join Hostroo on my recommendation as well.